WWDC was just a couple weeks ago, so this episode is going to be a bit of rapid fire because there's a lot to cover. But as always, links to everything you see here will be in the GitHub repo, and the link to that repo is in the description. Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. The biggest announcement by far was Apple Intelligence, which is Apple's take on AI. And basically, instead of knowing everything about the outside world, Apple was like, hey, we have a lot of data on you and your personal context right there on the phone. Why don't we go that route? Now, of course, there is generative AI stuff like writing tools to help you with emails, papers, social media posts. There's generative images, and there's Genmoji to generate some custom emoji on the fly. But again, the real power is knowing about you, your life, and the context in which you use your apps on your device. And that's going to be done with an improved Siri. Yes, finally, Siri's getting some improvements. We'll see how that goes. But an example Craig gave was when one of his meetings got rescheduled. He asked Siri, is this going to prevent me from getting to my daughter's play on time? And Apple Intelligence knows who his daughter is, knows about the play details because his daughter sent that to him in a text or an email, knows the time and location of his current meeting, and can pull up maps to see what the traffic is from the meeting to the play to give the best answer. So that's an example of how Apple Intelligence can use a bunch of apps together to better help you. Another simple example they gave was, hey, summarize the meeting notes in the Notes app and put that into an email in the Superhuman app. So Siri will be able to navigate the system on your behalf to take actions. So what does that mean for us developers? Well, if Apple Intelligence or Siri can take action across apps, these actions need to be exposed via app intents. So app intents are going to be a very big deal for us developers. Now, they were already pretty big with shortcuts and interactive widgets, but over the next couple years, as users become accustomed and just expecting Apple Intelligence to work with all their apps, if your app doesn't, it's going to be a deal breaker, and they're going to go to a competitor's app. Like in a couple years, working with Apple Intelligence via app intents, that's just going to be table stakes for apps, in my opinion. So if you haven't started learning app intents yet, you should probably get on that. We're going to kick off the dub recap with what's new in SwiftUI for iOS 18. And as always, Paul Hudson, Two Straws, has you covered with in-depth articles on all the new stuff to show you it in action. But before we get to those, we're going to talk about one major change that actually looks small on the surface, but has big implications when it comes to Swift concurrency, and that is view is now on the main actor. So before, main actor was just on the body of the view, not the entire view itself. So just by moving at main actor up here to the view protocol, that changes a lot, again, when it comes to Swift concurrency. So what that means is everything on your view, scroll down here, whether it's all your properties and methods, that's going to be run on the main actor. So what this does, in my opinion, it's better because we as the developers now are responsible to moving things to the background thread when necessary. Which, as Paul says down here, in the beginning, it's a welcome change, but because it was a little different before, might break your code a little bit. So there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment, but overall, I think it's much easier to have the entire view on the main actor. And then onto the new API, there's custom text effects with animations. There's a new zoom transition in between views. We got mesh gradients. And if I go to some tweets here, these mesh gradients, yes, they can be animated as you're seeing here in this tweet. I want to give credit to the author. There you go. Daniel Kuntz shows how they can easily be animated and these look great. David Steppenbeck says, look, you can even put it as a foreground style on text. I've seen people use it for buttons or an animated border around a button, and mesh gradients are everywhere in iOS 18, like that new Siri animation, that's a mesh gradient. My worry here with these mesh gradients though is that they are so easy, I think they're gonna get abused. I think you're just gonna see mesh gradients everywhere, so I guess my advice is to use them sparingly, don't overdo it. And we also got the ability to see the size and position of our scroll view and know when it changes. The example they gave in WWDC is like when you scroll to an auto-playing video, the video won't play until at least 50% of that video shows up on screen. So to put it simply, we just get more control over our scroll views and we can do things programmatically. But there was a bunch of stuff, and I highly recommend watching the WWDC video, like the source of all this stuff, called What's New in SwiftUI. Moving on, we got a new testing framework called Swift Testing. And anytime we get a new Swift thing, SwiftUI, Swift data, Swift whatever, Swift testing, that's good news, right? That means we're moving into the future and everything is just moving over to Swift, which you love to see. So what Swift testing does, it is open source and it's going to be evolved out in the open. So you're going to be able to see changes as they come, but it just leverages the powerful and expressive capabilities of Swift, such as concurrency, macros. It's just more modern than the old testing. And I haven't had a chance to play with this yet, but if you are interested, here's the documentation. You can see all the stuff over here on the left, but definitely watch, meet Swift testing. Go further with Swift testing. There's 2 WWDC sessions on it this year. check those out. And I will be implementing this into my portfolio piece course as part of the free iOS 18 update. So check that out. It's still 30% off during the pre-sale. As with every year, we got another update to one of my favorite things in the whole entire world, SF symbols, of course. I could go on and on about them. I think they're amazing. Like just having your own built-in icons that can animate and do all kinds of other stuff, like that's just a huge, huge time saver. And if you were around before SF symbols existed and you had to always go out and find your own icons, you know how much of a pain that was. Anyway, we got 800 new symbols. You're starting to see some of these animations come in. That's the magic replace. We got a new animation called wiggle. There you go. We got a rotate animation, and the rotate is smart. It won't rotate the whole thing, only parts of it. And then we got like a breathe animation. So yeah, a whole bunch of new animations built into. These kind of animations were introduced last year in iOS 17, and they're just, again, right out of the box. One simple modifier, one line of code. It's so easy to do. And then the magic replace is a new animation that will replace icons intelligently. As you just saw, that slash kind of animated down, the badge animated up. It's just really a much nicer replace animation than just getting rid of one icon, bringing in the other. And as you can see, the components are animating in separately, just like that. Now let's not forget about UIKit. Apple's still updating it each year, albeit they're small updates from year to year because, let's face it, it's a very mature framework. But Jordan Morgan has us covered every year with the notable UIKit additions. Like I said, it's going all the way back to iOS 11 if you want to see the change log over time, so to speak. But we got automatic trait tracking. To be honest with you, I never even messed with traits. I haven't touched UIKit in like 4 years, so don't take my opinion as meaning anything when it comes to UIKit. And it also looks like we got some update links, which is similar to CA display link. Which if you haven't used CA display link, it kind of syncs your animations with the frame rate of the device. I might not have that 100% correct, but that's directionally correct at least. But update links seems to be a more updated version of that. Right, Jordan says, how is it any different than CA display link? Basically, according to the docs, just has like more features, better tracking, it's more battery efficient, etc. So just kind of like a better version of CA display link. And keep scrolling down, we got the more symbol animations, the symbol animations I just talked about. Of course, they get a UIKit counterpart. And I believe, custom text formatting. Okay, these are two things that I wish SwiftUI had, or if SwiftUI does have this, I didn't know about it, and that would be a nice, pleasant surprise, so let me know in the comments. But with your text view here, you can say allows editing text attributes is true, and then you get this little pop out like you do in the Notes app, kind of for free. I don't think SwiftUI has that. I wish it did. That'd be cool. And the same thing down here with calendar selection. You can select the whole week on a UI calendar, which SwiftUI doesn't have an equivalent of. So that would be cool if SwiftUI could get that. So yeah, UIKit is still getting stuff that SwiftUI doesn't, which for the UIKit people, that's nice. Over here in SwiftUI land, I'm like, oh, I want that. That looks nice. And to wrap everything up, Apple gave us some WW24 highlights, and basically, you know, there's 150 something sessions individual, so you could scroll through all that to find this stuff. But what Apple did is they surfaced their highlights, their biggest moments for categories, right? Machine learning and AI. Swift, right? What's new in Swift? Swift testing, migrate your app to Swift 6. SwiftUI and frameworks, what's new in SwiftUI. So basically all the important ones, at least deemed by Apple to be on their highlight list, you can check out. So there's developer tools, what's new in Xcode, spatial computing, all the Vision OS ones. So if you don't have time to dive through all 100 and something sessions, Apple kind of gave you a curated list of what they feel are their biggest moments. And if you're here staying up to date with all the latest and greatest from WWDC 2024, you're probably building some great apps. And it's best to have a portfolio website to showcase those apps. And that brings me to today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to help you get that iOS developer portfolio up and running very quickly. Now I know we're developers, we can build a website ourselves, but we're also iOS developers, and I would argue there's an opportunity cost of your time. Now, do you want to spend your time learning about web development, responsive design, all the different browsers, or do you want to spend your time building apps? So that's why I always recommend letting Squarespace take that off your plate to build your iOS developer portfolio. They have all kinds of beautiful themes and templates to get you started, and you can use their next generation website editor with the Fluid engine to just really unlock all the creativity in the world. You can even use Squarespace Blueprint and Squarespace AI to help you figure out what to write on your website, because that's always the hardest part. Like, I don't even know what to say here. Throw it into Squarespace's AI and they'll help you out. They handle all the SEO and analytics for you. Again, Squarespace handling your website just takes so much off your plate. So when you're ready to get started, go to squarespace.com. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/SeanAllen to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Next up, I want to share the 2024 Apple Design Award winners. There you're seeing like Lost in Play. Apple gave a little minute-long video showcasing some of the apps. They don't normally do that, or if they did, I don't remember it. Normally it's just like an article. But I always share the Apple Design Award winners to give you some inspiration, right? There's different categories, delight and fun. So if you want to see an app that delights and is fun, download Bears Gratitude, check it out. And then there's more categories here too, right? Inclusivity, right? If you're working on accessibility and languages and all that stuff, and you want to see a great example, like something that won an Apple Design Award, download Oko, play around with the app, take some notes. So that's what I would do for like each category that you're interested in, that you're building on, right? There's innovation category. Here's the interaction category. Indie dev Devin Davies, say that 10 times fast, won the award for Crouton, a great app for recipes. So if you want an example of great user interactions in the app, download that, check it out if you haven't already. Again, social impact. Like I said, the idea for sharing these is for you to go through, check it out, visuals and graphics, like download rooms, play around with it, get some inspiration. And to wrap up all this WWDC talk, let's take a trip down SwiftUI memory lane from one of my new favorite blogs, Fat Bobman's blog. He has awesome articles. But this is reviewing the key SwiftUI upgrades from 2019 to 2023. So he talks about 2019, just the initial functionality, the launch. It was released alongside Combine, how limited it was, and then we get the updates, right? 2020, we got new project templates. You can build like an app. Lazy, right? Lazy VGrid, Lazy HGrid, Lazy HStack, Lazy VStack. That didn't come along until year 2. And this is fun to look back on if you've been around since the beginning, but if you're newer and you've only been around for a year or two, it's good to go back and see when these things came into place and trying to imagine what life was like in SwiftUI without them, right? State object. That didn't even come until iOS 14 or the second year of SwiftUI, and we hardly knew ya because state object and observed object aren't a thing anymore if you can go from iOS 17 and beyond with the new observation framework. On change modifier, I use that all the time. That didn't exist. Scrolling position, widgets weren't a thing until iOS 14. 2021, we got new concurrency. We got focus state in 2021, or iOS 15. We got that format style that I love. That didn't come around to iOS 15. And then iOS 16, we got custom layouts with the layout protocol. Navigation stack, right? We were still on navigation view, which was pretty limiting for programmatic navigation. Navigation stack fixed that. We didn't get that till iOS 16. Swift charts, one of my favorites. Again, didn't get that. I could go on and on, right? Observation framework came last year. What else? Swift data, that's a big one. Vision OS. So it's always fun to take a trip down memory lane. And like I said, it's fun to imagine like, oh man, I can't even imagine what life was like before state object. We had everything with observed object. Hint, didn't do very well. But anyway, that was a fun little trip down memory lane. Moving on to the design portion of the show, here's an article called Lookup at 10. Now, I wasn't familiar with the Lookup app. I'm just a sucker for these kind of articles. Essentially, it's like a retrospective of how this app has evolved and changed over a decade, right? It was released in, I believe, 2014 or 2013, somewhere around there. So you can see the evolution of the app design, but they go through basically the whole life story. I'm gonna just scroll through. It's very visual too, which is another reason why I like this. So I'm gonna scroll through, and you can see iterations, but we get into like how different platforms came to be, the iterations on the app icon, and where we are today. Again, more design process. Like I said, you may not care about this stuff. I'm a complete sucker for like watching a design process, seeing things go from like a wireframe to a low fidelity to high fidelity to like the final, and then how they started designing for iPad. Features that don't work out, you got to take them out. When they first started building for dark mode, before dark mode was actually like a thing, out of the box anyway. Again, the iPad designs, bringing it to the Mac, all this stuff. Like I said, it's a journey of a decade of a product, right? I think a lot of us, when you're building a product as indie developers, you want to get to the final thing like ASAP. And it's very easy to be like impatient, be like, oh, my app sucks. Why isn't it, this vision I have in my head? Well, it takes years and years and years to build out all these features, build out all these platforms. And going through this lookup article is a pretty good example of that in practice. Now, they have a whole thing, iterative process, right? You talk about just for the iPhone. 3 years later, it came out for the iPad. 2 years after that, it came to the Mac. And then, 5 years after that, Vision Pro. So you can see just the evolution of a product, and it takes a long time to build a great product. I want to leave you with a video from Xander here, Stop Designing with Primary Buttons. He's been putting out some cool videos on Twitter, basically just visual hierarchy in app UI. So you see you have like all these buttons that are all the same color. Well, the user needs some visual hierarchy to know what's primary. So he groups them into like tertiary, secondary, and then the primary action, which is send. So you take all those tertiary buttons, you put them behind a more button, just like that. And then you take the more action, give it like a tertiary, like you don't really see it. You're gonna see it's basically clear. And then these secondary actions, you kind of gray them out. That way the primary action really stands out, which you just scroll down. And then you can add some logos down here, some more information, like if it's up or down. And you can see that just gives the screen much more visual hierarchy. But it was just a quick little 50-second, very good design lesson, I thought. So, hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll see you in the next one.